Welcome everyone and Happy New Year. I feel like every time we start a new year, it sets off the energy tone. And what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to explore each month some of the energy tones that we can work with. So some of the things that we can reflect on, some of the things we can journal on and use as a practice for the month ahead. And it's interesting because this month we're actually starting, not just this month, but this year we're starting off with a Venus retrograde and a Mercury retrograde. So retrogrades are a time where we can go really internally and do much more deeper reflection work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on some specific areas. This is not just for this month. If you're listening to this in the future, you can also tune into some of these tips for the Venus retrograde. And also, if you're on the podcast, you can watch the video on YouTube. Link will be in the description box, where I will have some notes in the video as well so that you can use them for your reflection work. So very interesting times, very transformational times. And as always, I invite you to sit back and relax and see what comes up for you. Have your journal at hand and make some notes. If anything does come up, or of course you can use any of the reflection questions that I provide for your future practice this month and beyond. I will have a blog link in the description box as well with even more reflection questions and even more areas that we're going to explore. So let's dive in to a little bit about what the Venus retrograde represents. Let's begin by looking at what the energy of Venus is. And I'm going to share my notes as I go along with some reflection questions so you can see what comes up for you. And I invite you to pause anytime you need to write something in your journal, or if something really triggers you in a good way or a challenging way. So Venus energy is very much the divine feminine, and we have the feminine and the masculine within us, no matter what our gender or sex is. Biologically, it doesn't matter. We are both the masculine and the feminine. So we have this balancing act that happens within us. And when we look towards our Venus, we're connecting to the more feminine qualities. And these are love and relationships. Very well known. Venus is the goddess of love and how we connect with other people and partnerships. So it's not just romantic, but it's how our connections truly are nurtured within our connections to others. So us and the other. The feminine quality is also about intuition, and it is a very creative intuition. And of course, it's about attraction as well. So the Venus qualities is not about action-based masculine energies that we're used to. It's about the attraction and the manifesting and drawing towards us the things that we need in life, such as our comforts and also the pleasure in life. So things that make us feel comfortable, things that we enjoy, things that are beautiful and give us pleasure in life. And it's also what we truly value. So the things in life that we can say that it's important to us, it's what we stand for, and it's what we truly value. Another part of Venus is also about money, abundance, and materialistic things. So our 3D support system in our material life. And of course, money is a form of energy exchange. So even the word money sometimes triggers a lot of different things within us, which is very interesting because when we have this Venus retrograde, we can dive into it, which we'll get into later. And money and abundance, of course, are very connected in the material things that we do manifest. And lastly, I would say Venus is about how you feel about yourself. How do you feel beautiful? Beautiful. So how do you truly fully explore yourself, appreciate yourself, value yourself, feel within your body, feel within your senses, feel within your environment, feel within your connections. So it's a much deeper sense of what beauty is. It's not just the superficial outer way that we look. It's about how we truly feel about ourselves and what we can nurture into the world around us. Now, Venus retrograde is taking these elements but going really internally. So the focus is about going internally, not looking outwardly towards all the things I just mentioned. It's about taking those elements, going within, and it's a beautiful opportunity to use these times to explore both the shadow and the light. You know, sometimes we need to go through the shadow self, and retrograde sometimes does that to us. An example of retrogrades that most people know is the Mercury retrograde, and Mercury retrograde is very famous for miscommunications and emails getting lost or technology being broken. So this is when things go wrong with the Mercury energy. And most people know about the Mercury retrograde, which happens quite often during the year. So similarly with Venus retrograde or any planet, it's about looking maybe at the shadow aspects, about when things don't go as planned. And I always say when there is retrograde energy, it's about taking a step back and looking at it much more deeper within, focusing on all those issues very deeply within and observing ourselves. And each Venus retrograde has its own qualities. So when typically a planet goes retrograde, they're in a certain sign or they have other connections to other planets. So of course, each cycle of Venus retrograde might feel different. The one I'm talking about today is a Capricorn Venus retrograde, and it has a lot of Pluto influences. So if you're watching this in future, have a look at what sign this Venus retrograde cycle is, and also if there's any important connections to other planets in some way. And this is going to be a very general reflection on Venus retrograde. So of course you can take any of these notes that I'm sharing and using it in future, not just for this cycle that we're having this time in Capricorn. What's very interesting as well is that the Venus retrograde is typically 40 days. And 40 days is a sacred number. We use this in Kundalini Yoga, for example, where we do a meditation for 40 days. And 40 days is typically the amount of time to start breaking and shifting old patterns and habits and cycles. So it really is an invitation to make a practice for 40 days and seeing what comes up within us, seeing how we can shift that energy within those 40 days so that when Venus goes direct, then we can actually, instead of being internal, we can start shifting that energy externally and start launching things into the world around us. So 40 days I find is such a beautiful amount of time that you can use anytime you want to do a meditation, or if you want to do something related to changing your habits. So I invite you in this Venus retrograde to use these 40 days. Even if you're watching it in the middle of Venus retrograde, it doesn't matter. Anytime you're watching this and you're getting prepared maybe for Venus retrograde, this is an opportunity to dive in deeper. Okay, so now that we've looked at what it means to connect with the Venus qualities and a little bit about the Venus retrograde, I'm going to dive into more specific areas. And I'm going to choose the top 3 areas that I love to reflect on, but please check the description box because I have a blog post there with different areas and different reflection questions which you can use for your journaling this month. But the top 3 that I'm going to be using is our values and needs, our love, connections and partnerships, and of course the money and material and abundance that we have in our lives. And I think this is probably the most juiciest parts of areas in our life that people want to know about. People want to know about how they can make money, how they can make good partnerships and create flow in partnerships. And of course, it all begins with our values and needs. I'm going to also throw in some examples of Venus in Capricorn for this cycle, but you can relate this to any cycle in future for Venus retrograde. So let's begin with values and needs. This is very interesting because I think this is definitely a time to reflect deeply in our own values and needs. As I'm making this video, and of course in the next couple of years to come, no matter if you're listening to it now or in the future, there's a lot of change. There is a lot of change that is going on, and it is a time to get very real and very internal about what is going on within us. And it's a very crucial time to ask ourselves what we value, what our needs are, and to check back within ourselves, to reevaluate everything within ourselves. Remember, retrograde energy is always connected to the words RE. So to remember, to redo, to reevaluate, to reanalyze, all these words. I can't think of any in the top of my head, but I'm sure you can think of other ones. Reflect, of course, that's an obvious word that starts with RE. And as we are changing, and the world is changing on a personal and collective level, our values and needs might change as well. And that's a normal part of how our evolution is and how we are changing in the world around us. So I ask you now, as a reflection question, how has your true values and needs changed? I think specifically in the last year or so, how has or what has triggered your values and needs, or made you think about your values and needs differently? And each one of us will have different areas, or maybe all areas, that we will be looking at and feeling when we think about our values and our needs. And this can be in our work life, this can be in our personal life, but it is an invitation, because when we get extremely clear about what our values and needs, then we can start making and creating the life that we want. And sometimes that does mean we have to release a lot of things. We have to look through our old values and our old needs and start being very clear about what it is that we need to slowly release, whether it's mentally, spiritually, or whether it's physically, to remove some of those things or to adjust the dynamics of how we connect with those things. So I'm going to share with you a journal exercise here. And as you can see, this is a table. And this can be applied to any part of your life. For example, in your relationships, in your family life, your work life, your friendships, any part of your life that you want to focus on. And it's a very simple table of before and now. So what did you value and what did you need before in this area of your life? And what do you need now? And I'll give you a very simple but very real example of Venus in Capricorn, because Capricorn is about structures, the structures in our life. And throughout the whole pandemic, for example, a lot of people before used to value the need to be near their workplace, even if that meant living in the city or somewhere more expensive. So that would be there before. And now a lot of people are starting to see that they don't need to be in those same spaces where their office is. They don't need to be in maybe smaller places in the city. Maybe they want to move away, and a lot of people have moved out into the country, for example, where they have more space, where the rent is cheaper, maybe the life is cheaper, maybe they can grow their food. So the before would look very different from what it is now. And we're seeing a lot of these different changes in our society. So that's very Capricorn energy. And definitely the before and now will look very different. So this is an example. Maybe you can think about areas in your life, maybe triggered because of recent times, recent events and global events that are happening, where you've had to rethink what you value and need in different areas. Maybe it's your workplace. Maybe before you felt like a certain job was something that you've always wanted to do. And now maybe you're realizing, you know what? That job doesn't value me. It doesn't value my skills. And I feel like I'm not being paid enough, or I feel like I'm not being challenged enough, or maybe I just want to change my career and my job altogether for whatever reason. So that would be your now. Maybe it's your friendships. Maybe because of the changes that you're making within you, the people that you relate to is different, and that includes relationships as well. Maybe it's time to connect and consciously discuss and share what your new values and needs are. One thing I would say about Venus retrograde is it's not a time to start sharing. It's a time for preparing. So if you are looking at your values and needs and things are really shifting within, keep it within, journal it, explore it, but don't necessarily take this moment in time to share it with others or to take the actions, because it's still very internal. When Venus goes direct, then you can start thinking about the actions that you need to take, the small actions towards your values and your needs of now. Maybe it would be time to also discuss things with other people about what your values and needs are when Venus is direct. So I would definitely not recommend to do any specific actions now. Just use this moment to become very clear about your values and needs. We've talked about our values and needs, and I think the next two areas are going to stem from that, because once we're clear and once we use our values and needs as a foundation for other areas that we want to explore, then things become a little bit more easier, because then we are clearer about the areas that we want to take action in when Venus goes retrograde. And of course, love and the connection to others is a very juicy topic that many of us want to explore. After all, Venus is about love energy. Venus is about how we connect with others. I would say like I did previously, that this is not a good time. This is not a good time to start relationships. This is not a good time to get married. This is not a good time to do any external actions. So again, don't focus on the external when it comes to love and connections with others. Focus on the love and connection within yourself and how that extends to others. It's famously known for a time where old lovers come back. So a lot of people start to realize that their exes come back into the picture. So it's definitely not a time to start something again with old lovers. Because a lot of times people do something during the Venus retrograde, and then when Venus goes direct, they either regret it or it doesn't work out. So highly recommend not to do anything externally with other people, and especially with close relationships. That being said, with love and connections to others, of course, this might be a trigger moment. This might be a period of time where triggers come up. If we are meeting our exes, for example, obviously there will be a lot of triggers. There might be a lot of different thoughts that come up. If we meet someone during this Venus retrograde that's new, maybe there's a lot of karma that needs to be resolved within ourselves first. So a lot of people do find this time very challenging, especially in their existing relationships. But I'd like to say as a positive thing that this is an opportunity to explore. When there's triggers, then there is the opportunity to dive in much deeper and maybe do the shadow work and maybe explore why you're being triggered by these other people in your life. And I'm not just talking romantically again, it could be partnerships with anyone, any connections that you have regularly, whether it's work or personal. So observe these times of triggering, observe what old things come back into the picture, and they will show you what cycles you need to break or continue. So I'll give you the example of an old lover coming back, an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend coming back. What is it about them that is repeating itself right now? Maybe it's repeating itself in other people or in your current partner, for example. Sometimes when we talk about connections with others, it's this direct reflection of the cycles that we're creating. And a lot of times people find that even though they're meeting different people, the same cycles and patterns come up. And Venus retrograde is that opportunity to say to yourself, okay, are these cycles healthy for me? Again, going back to our values and needs, do I want to break this because I no longer value this cycle or pattern in my connections to others, or do I want to continue it? So I'm going to share some reflection questions, and you can write this down or you can just see what comes up within yourself as I mention them. And the first reflection question is, are my values and needs appreciated in my connections? So, are my values and needs appreciated in my connections to others? Do you feel like other people truly value you? See what comes up. And I will also ask you, are my connections a two-way energy effort? So, the connections that I have in my life, is it always a one-way effort, or does it feel like it's an equal effort between the two people? Again, this could be work or personal. Am I in any toxic cycles that I need to work through or break? So am I in any toxic cycles that I need to work through or break? And think about the triggers that are coming up. Are these triggers from old cycles and patterns that no longer need to be in your life? Again, going back to values and needs. You no longer value these cycles and they've become toxic. Another reflection question is, do my loved ones hold space for me? Do the people that I love, do they hold space for me? And this is a big one for a lot of empaths and HSPs, highly sensitive people, because a lot of the times we tend to hold space for other people. And sometimes we don't get the same in return, especially when there's not a two-way energy flow. So ask yourself, do my loved ones hold space for me? Next reflection question is, if I need to share my values and my needs, how can I communicate this? So if your values and needs have changed, how are you going to communicate this to other people in your connections when Venus goes retrograde? And the last reflection question is, what does my intuition tell me about the people in my life? These are some of my favorite reflection questions to ask about love and relationships. And of course, it is a very complex area of our life. So take what you need, leave what you don't feel you need to explore. And truly look at how your connections are with other people, because they are a direct reflection of things that you can work on within yourself. And with that, we're going to dive into the next topic, which is about money, material, and abundance. Another juicy area that a lot of people experience deeply through the Venus retrograde. And this is a big topic because think of everything that's going on globally. There's a lot of global changes. There's a lot of personal changes. There's a lot of career changes. People are changing their career or deciding to leave their old career and start completely new ones. The big example I can give is the great resignation that's going on in the US and also other parts of the world, where people are resigning from their jobs in big numbers, whether it's by because they want to start something new, or because of mandates, or anything related to health and the stuff that's going on. But there is definitely a big shift in the way people are working, the careers, the way we make money, the way we value the material things in our life, and the way we create abundance in our life. So I'd like to explore this topic, especially stemming off from our values and our needs, and looking at our own beliefs in what money, wealth, and success is. This is a trigger point for many people, as I mentioned before, but remember, money is a form of energy exchange. But at the same time, there's a lot of shadow work that can happen because we've all grown up with different belief systems, maybe from our families or our society, about what money is. And this is a very Capricornian thing, because Capricorn is very much to do with careers, work, and how we gain our status in society. And that usually involves our money, our material, and our abundance. So this is perfect to tune in now. But anytime really in any Venus retrograde, when we talk about money, there is also shadow work involved. And it's looking at the structures in our life that creates money, that creates wealth, that creates our own idea of success. So take a moment to ask yourself, what does success mean to you? What does it truly mean to you? Not what it means to society or other people and all the Capricornian things I've mentioned about careers and jobs and social status, but just for yourself, what does success mean? And I guarantee you, each one who's listening right now will have totally different ideas of what success means. And then, of course, I ask you to think about the shadow work that you need to do, maybe related to money, the barriers, the belief systems, whether it's yours or influenced from other people when we were growing up, our families, for example, where we have those limitations about money. For example, a very common thought about money is that rich people are evil, or rich people had to do bad things in order to gain their money, wealth, and success. Or money and success means that you have to sacrifice other things in your life. These are all different belief systems, and we can look at them without judgment, but we can start to explore where they're coming from within ourselves. Maybe it was something that our parents told us when we were little, that money was only for certain people in society, or maybe you had to sacrifice this in order to gain money. Or we can add so many different beliefs that we can pick up from other people. So where did your beliefs about money, success, and wealth come from? Take a moment to think about that. And also, I would like to invite you to also take a moment to think about how the way you gain money, or your ideas of gaining money, has changed. Because we're living in transitional times, we've all had to adapt in the way we create money and our ideas of wealth. Especially during these times, simple examples is many people have had to adapt to working online. Or maybe there's been a lot of changes in industry, and some areas and businesses are growing while others are failing. Maybe many of us have had to learn new skills, and also we had to retrain ourselves and our different skills so that we can adapt to these changes. So during transitional times, especially now and the next couple of years to come, the idea of what abundance means can change. The idea of what our tools are in order to gain abundance and wealth and money will change. So I want to ask you, how have you adapted? How have you adapted or changed your relationship to money and the structures in your life that creates money? Take a moment just to close your eyes and think about that. And no matter what business or work or what area of your life, we all need money to survive in this 3D world. So however it is that you're gaining money, take a moment to think about what you've had to adapt, change, and how your relationship to money and success and abundance is. And the good news is, when we start looking at some of these key points in our life, then we can start creating the shifts. We can start putting in place some of the journaling and the exercises in order to get very clear about certain areas in our life. Maybe we're in a place where we want to just change one area. Maybe we're in a place we want to change so many. So this is an invitation to use this Venus retrograde and make those internal shifts first, and then create the actions later. Well, thank you for taking the time to listen and go through these energy questions and reflections together, and I wish you a very beautiful January 2022. Of course, this energy can be used anytime there is a Venus retrograde, and I have many more different reflection questions and different areas about this topic in the description box, so you're welcome to come and join me there. And I wish you a happy new year. May it be blessed, may it bring you a lot of abundance and beautiful joy. Satnam.